Trump's lifetime, the inaugural address has gone from a president saying, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country, to drill, baby, drill. And it was Donald Trump who supplied the second one. I want to do two quick fact checks on this, and then to a larger point. Well, one thing, we will send astronauts to Mars. That's not going to happen during Donald Trump's lifetime, so don't expect it during his 4 years. He said we will tariff and tax other countries. If any country in the world could tax another country, that country would do it, and the people living in that country would pay no taxes. There is no such thing as taxing other countries. He will use tariffs, and tariffs do equate to taxes, and that tax will be paid only by us, by Americans. And then on the LA fires, he referred to his billionaire friends in the room and said, some of them with Los Angeles homes, he said, they don't have a home any longer. That is a lie, and it is not common for presidents to tell lies in an inaugural address. In fact, I've never heard one other than in a Trump inaugural address. Jeff Bezos' house in Los Angeles was never threatened for a single moment by that fire. The most important thing, though, was at the very beginning of his speech, because the substance of the Trump speech is always the same. This was a rally. And he began the speech the way these speeches always begin, by addressing directly the former presidents in the room. He said, President Bush, President Clinton, President Obama, President Biden. Donald Trump is the only former president who has never attended that moment so that he could have been addressed 4 years ago as a former president. And so we have returned to normalcy in that recitation, and the normalcy was presented by Donald Trump, who was in the process highlighting his own violation of that protocol, that responsibility, and that duty as an outgoing president to welcome in the incoming president.
Just noting what we're looking at here, we're seeing some what appear to be heartfelt goodbyes and some greetings here. We are expecting now former Vice President Kamala Harris and her husband Doug Emhoff to depart here by motorcade. They'll get into a car and drive away. That's what we're seeing here now as they move to leave the White House. The end of her term as vice president. As soon as they have left in this motorcade, we expect that now former President Joe Biden and his wife, the First Lady Jill Biden, will depart by helicopter. Let's just watch this moment here. See there, President Trump and First Lady Melania Trump, Vice President Vance, and Second Lady Usha Vance saying goodbye to President Biden and First Lady Jill Biden. And now we will watch as the helicopter takes off. We think of it as Marine One, seeing a president get on board. Technically, it is no longer Marine One. That is no longer the designation that it has once it is a former president on board rather than the president himself. We'll be watching today, over the course of the day, to see what substantive executive actions and orders the new president signs. His team has made much of the fact that they're going to do a lot on day one. We've already seen some surprise departures. The acting director of the FBI, who has been in his job since yesterday, unexpectedly resigned today. So it's not at all clear who is running the FBI at this moment. There was no clear acting Secretary of Defense until a few moments ago, when a low-level defense official who is not somebody who's well known, a man named Robert Salazar, was named as acting defense secretary. That was a surprise, and there was some period of time when the Pentagon did not know who the acting secretary of defense was. It's not clear to me at this moment who the acting attorney general is. It may be Emil Bove, who was one of President Trump's defense attorneys. He is in the process of installing 4 of them at the top of the U.S. Justice Department. But of course, regardless of what happens with executive actions and with people stepping in to assume control of government departments, this inaugural address goes down in history now as the second inaugural of Donald Trump. Joy, you were watching that along with us. Wanted to get your take on both what we are seeing here now as President Biden takes off to become former President Biden, and as we absorb that address.
Well, I think to echo Lawrence, one of the things that is remarkable is that this is the thing that didn't happen when President Biden was inaugurated. Donald Trump essentially boycotted the inaugural and treated it as essentially an insult to him because he was still claiming that he had won the election. The last time we saw Donald Trump give an inaugural address, it was American carnage. And I think to Chris's point, he did return to the notion that only his presence makes America great. What makes America great is that he is running it. He's in charge of it. A few of the things that I will notice, but before I note that, I do have to note, just based on my text messages, Lorenzo Sewell, the Detroit pastor, his speech was quite over the top, quite performative. He is, for those who are asking, and including those who are texting me and asking who he is the Detroit area pastor who held a rally, an event for Donald Trump during the campaign, at which it was reported as a black church, and many of the members are African American, but that day, the audience inside of the church were white MAGA supporters who had been at a rally nearby. But the last things I'll say is, it was a speech that was quite over the top, and I'm not sure what the point was, other than he is becoming quite famous in MAGA world. Donald Trump, in this address, declared himself to be a peacemaker and a unifier not long after declaring that he would end diversity, equity, and inclusion in all of government, rename the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America, and slight indigenous Americans by returning Mount Denali, which is the indigenous name, to again be called Mount McKinley, McKinley being someone who believed in something that Donald Trump repurposed for himself, manifest destiny, which is one of the most racist concepts in the history of America. It was the empire and colonization principle that America had a right and in fact a duty to colonize and take over non-white places in the world and own them. And he made that direct threat against the nation of Panama, which owns the Panama Canal. And he made sure that he included a slight to the late Jimmy Carter for having made the deal to return the canal to the government who owns it, Panama. So not sure that peacemaker and unifier was much evidenced in the words that he said. Vice President again. There you go.
Former President Biden and former First Lady Jill Biden. That is technically called HMX-1 rather than Marine One. Once it is a former president on board, they are going to Joint Base Andrews. That's going to be about a 45-minute that's a quick flight to Joint Base Andrews, and then they're expecting to have sort of a short farewell with their nearest and dearest staff before they are back to Delaware. Former Vice President, see there's Joint Base Andrews there, very helpful with the map. Former Vice President Kamala Harris and her husband Doug Emhoff will be flying to California, to Los Angeles this afternoon. That C-17 will be operated by an all-female U.S. Air Force crew. It's the first time an all-female crew has operated a C-17 for the U.S. Air Force. When they land in Los Angeles, they'll visit a local fire station to thank firefighters who've been on the front lines actually fighting the LA fires, even though weirdly Trump said during his inaugural that those fires were not fought. They'll also be distributing food to people who've been affected by the fires with help of World Central Kitchen. What we're looking at here is Emancipation Hall. President Trump is expected to make some unscripted remarks to the crowd, sort of the overflow crowd from the rotunda, who is not in the room to see him sworn in. But here at Emancipation Hall, we think that we will be getting unscripted remarks from him. As we're waiting for that, Andrea, I believe you're on site there at Emancipation Hall. Can you just tell us what you're seeing?
Yes, we understand that he is in the hall. There were some cheers a little while ago. The photographers came in, so he's about to enter and go up the stage, but he is in the room. There are about 1,800 people in all, 1,300 in this room, 500 more in an overflow room. But you can see that he's about to come and be announced. That was certainly an extraordinary speech, but it was cheered here in the hall, especially the Panama Canal comments, the comments about gender, DEI, all of the things that are cultural issues. Standing ovations frequently from people here. Many are the spouses of members of Congress, other invited friends. This is unusual, of course, because this is an indoor ceremony, but this has a lot of less pomp and circumstance than the rotunda, obviously. This is usually used for tourists and for other events up here as the visitor center. It was built only within the last decade, really, underneath the Capitol. So you can hear the cheers now as he is visible to people here and is about to be announced.
To President Trump's triumphant return to the White House. Right now, already this morning, you can feel it around the country. We certainly felt it here in the city. America is coming together and roaring back again, and it begins today, as the president just told us. I know we'd all rather be gathered together on the National Mall with hundreds of thousands of our closest friends, but our disappointment is well overcome with our excitement for the future that we feel today. We have the chance to make the next 4 years the most consequential period in our nation's history. And as Speaker of the House, it is my great pleasure, my great honor, to introduce to you the man who will lead us to this new golden age, the decisive winner of the Electoral College and the popular vote, the 45th and the 47th, and the greatest president of our lifetimes, Donald J. Trump.
Well, thank you all so much for being here. And was that a hell of a speech or what? That was, man. That was a good way to start it off. You know, I didn't know exactly what the president would put in that speech, and I hoped to myself that he wasn't going to hold back, and sir, you didn't hold back. That was a hell of a way to start the next 4 years. But I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, and I know I speak for the president and for all of us, thank you, thank you, thank you for making this possible. We love you. We wouldn't be here without you, and we're going to make America great again together for the next 4 years. And the last thing I'll say is, you know, having stood outside for about 5 minutes to wave goodbye to the Bidens, thank God we moved that thing indoors, because it was a beautiful ceremony and it was cold as hell outside. So, sir, the 45th and 47th President of the United States, Donald J. Trump.
No, he's right. I said, oh, look at this beautiful sunny day. We blew it, and then I went outside and we were freezing. You would have been very unhappy. The sun was very deceptive, I will tell you. It is cold out. And I'm sort of saying, you know, that was so beautiful today. Maybe they should do it there every 4 years. Does that make sense? I don't know. Because, you know, the outdoor thing is really good, but it gets a little cold around this time of the year, as some people have noticed. And a lot of times they suffer through it. There was no suffering in that room. It was 72 degrees. It was perfect with the best acoustics I think I've ever heard in a room. This is not so bad either. But I just want to say, you're a younger, far more beautiful audience that I just spoke to. And I want to keep it off the record. I want to keep that off the record, because I don't want to have all those big shots up there. I don't want to think you're more powerful than them, you look better than them, and I love you. Now, we just had a great time. We just had a great day. This was amazing. You know, when you think we took a journey, I mentioned in the speech, a lot of people said that was not a journey that was possible, and it was indeed possible. I didn't really know too much about what they were saying when they said that, but a lot of people felt it, and we hooked up with JD very early. I watched JD over a period of time. I endorsed him in Ohio. He was a great senator, and very, very smart. The only one smarter than him was his wife. So I would have chosen her, but somehow the line of succession didn't work that way, right? But now she's great and he's great. This is a great, beautiful couple, and unbelievable career. I just said to him, you are very upwardly mobile, because he hasn't been doing it that long, but he picked it up so quickly. Remember, the first week was a little bit like the fake news was hitting him really hard. And I said, oh, this may be tough, but after that, it was smooth sailing for him. He took on everybody. He took on the meanest. I don't want to use the word corrupt because we're into a new system, so let's wait till the corruption begins, because it will. But he took on some pretty mean people, and he handled it well. I want to also congratulate Mike Johnson for the job that he's doing. See, we gave him a majority of almost nothing, and then I said, to make it tougher on him, let me take 2 or 3 of the people, right? I said, he'll only have to suffer with that for about 3 months. How are they doing, by the way? Are they? Is that moving along?
Totally uniform.
I said, do you mind if I take this one, that one, and a couple of others? He didn't mind. He can handle it. No, he's a man that's liked by everybody. I've never met a man like this. You've got how many is it, 219 or 220 or something? 220. And of the 220, 219 really like him. I noticed he got 1 negative vote once about 2 weeks ago. But I think even 220 like him, if you want to know the truth. And that's very unusual. I know a lot of nice guys in Congress, and they have 35 people that hate him. So if you have 35 people that hate you and you only have 1 or 2 or 3 votes, you'll have 5, I think. But that's going to be like, you know, the good news is when we get to that 5 number, it's going to feel like a massive majority. You could be really nasty to a couple of them at least. Yeah? So it's going to feel like hitting your head on the wall and stopping. It feels so good to stop. But he's done a fantastic job. And Steve Scalise is, he's our hero, because, you know, I was with him. You talk about being shot. I was with him. He got some bad ones, and his incredible wife, and she really loves him. You know, you never know about that. I've been with other people that were doing poorly, and the wife is like looking at her watch. She can't get out of the hospital fast enough. How's he doing? Oh, I don't know. He's all right. That woman was a mess. She was crying and crying. No, they're going to take him. They're going to take him. I told Steve when he finally woke up, it was a while too. The doctor told me it was the most blood they've ever transfused in any patient. They've never done anything like it. And here he is, the picture of strength, right? And he's been a great friend of mine, right? With a family, because of a family. And what a job you did. It worked out pretty much better than we even thought, right? And I did have a couple of things, to say that were extremely controversial. And between JD and Melania and anybody else that heard, please, sir, it's such a beautiful unifying speech. Please, sir, don't say these things. I said, I'm telling you, it's going to play great. They said, you're right. For this group of people, it's going to play great. You're the only ones I hurt by not, but we had some beauties, didn't we, Melania? She said, sir, calls me sir when she's angry. I said, no, I'm only kidding. I better say I'm only kidding, or the press is going to pick that one up loud and clear. No, but she said, no, I think it would be terrible. It's such a nice speech. I think it's, it all depends on your delivery. How was the delivery? Was it good? Yeah. But she said it's such a beautiful speech. You can't put things in there that you were going to put in. And I was going to talk about the J6 hostages, but you'll be happy because, it's action, not words that count. And you're going to see a lot of action on the J6 hostages. See a lot of action. And I was going to talk about the things that Joe did today with the pardons of people that were very, very guilty of very bad crimes, like the Unselect Committee of Political Thugs, where they literally, what they did is they destroyed and deleted all of the information, all of the hearings, practically not a thing left. They deleted all the information on Nancy Pelosi having turned down the offer of 10,000 soldiers. You wouldn't have needed 10,000, you could have had 500, and it would have stopped. Because we may have had 1 million people that day, the people that were there. You don't see any photographs, but we have a lot of great photos. But you don't see those photographs. They don't put them in to show the people at the Capitol. But I was talking about that. I was going to talk about that. They said, please don't bring that up right now. You can bring it up tomorrow. I said, how about now in front of I'll bring it up right now. This little time delay is good because we're getting great reviews on the speech. Watch. They'll take the speech and say, I didn't like it because he left there and he talked to people. But we're giving you a little more information than we gave upstairs. But no, they pardoned a lot of people. They pardoned, before we even get to today, they pardoned, 33 murderers, absolute murderers, the worst murderers. When you get the death sentence in the United States, you have to be bad because they don't give it much. And he pardoned almost everybody having a death sentence. And if you went through the crimes that were committed, you wouldn't even believe them, the level of violence, the people that were killed, the innocence of people that were killed and children killed by these people. And he pardoned them for whatever reason. He spared them, but they didn't spare the people that they killed. And who knows what happens in the future. It's one of the worst because a lot of times they let them out early after that. They say you're going to be in for life, but then all of a sudden they get let out for good behavior and then they go on a rampage. It's one of those little things, right? But I was going to talk about that. But I was really going to talk about the level of, what's going on. Why are we doing this? Why are we trying to help a guy like Milley? Why are we doing Milley? He was pardoned. What he said, terrible what he said. Why are we helping some of the people? Why are we helping Liz Cheney? Liz Cheney is a disaster. She's a crying lunatic and crying crying Adam Kinzinger. He's a super crier. I never saw the guy not crying. He's always crying. I looked at him. I remember years ago he was actually on my side. And then one day, you know, when you don't want to kill people in wars, they turn against you. Liz Cheney hated the concept of not going to war with everybody. Let's kill everybody. Let's spend a lot of money on military equipment. You know where her father works, right? And but what she did was incredible. Think of it. They destroyed and deleted all of that information that went on for almost 2 years against Trump. And the reason they did, because it was all false. Like the person that said, I tried to strangle a Secret Service agent. That's one of the toughest human beings I think I've ever seen. I actually had a friend saying, please don't change that, sir. You are the coolest sucker in history. Remember, she said, I put my hands around his neck because he wouldn't go to the Capitol. Made up fiction. And I was rebuffed. And the guy on the right is a massive weightlifter, probably stronger than me. Do you think he's stronger than me, honey? You know who I'm talking. Possibly stronger than me. Slightly younger than me, like, I won't say how many years because I don't want to talk about that, but a lot of years. But I had a friend that said, why are you disputing that story? That's the coolest story I've ever heard. That I would attack a karate champion, get slightly rebuffed, and then throw my arms around a guy with a neck about this big. Even though there are bars, you know, there are bars that you can't really do that anyway. So I wanted to talk about that. But all of that stuff got deleted. And the reason it got deleted is they were all caught in lies. You know, Secret Service testified and they said it didn't happen. Actually, the two guys were very embarrassed. They're suffering because their friends are saying, did Trump really do that to you? But they gained a whole new respect for me. But it was just make-believe stuff. And there were a lot of make-believe stories made up. So rather than suffer the wrath, like the story with Nancy Pelosi, I offered her 10,000 soldiers.
Donald Trump is giving unscripted remarks in Emancipation Hall after his inaugural address, sort of giving a sort of fantasy riff about strangling people. On the right side of your screen, former President Biden and First Lady Jill Biden are addressing their family and staff and friends at a hangar at Joint Base Andrews. Let's dip in there for a moment.
As you heard me say before, no president gets to choose the moment they enter history, but they get to choose the team they enter history with. And we chose the best damn team in the world. You are. No, it's because of you. I mean this sincere from the bottom of my heart. Because of you, we got so much done for all Americans. I look down there, my Secretary of State, Tony Blinken, and chief only by his wife, who worked for me first. But look, I only hope to look back on these years, hope you look back on them, the same pride I have of all you've done. You know, I'm proud of is that you did it upholding the core values, honesty, decency, and integrity. I mean, no scandal. I mean, it's incredible what you did. And to represent the best of who we are as Americans, that's not a joke. That's real. Now, I relied on your ideas, resolve, and counsel. We also relied on your families. To all your families, thank you for the sacrifices you made. I mean it. For being part of this journey. Every day, I'm deeply moved by all we all did for this country. I really mean it. This is going to mark down just what you did. You know, but the point I want to make today is to make clear my farewell address, as we all do have we have a lot more to do. We heard the inaugural address today. We got a lot more to do. I know from many years of experience, they're up and down, but we have to stay with it. My dad taught me the measure of a person, you heard me say it before, is how quickly they get back up when they get knocked down. That's what we have to do right now. We've always done our best as Americans. We never give up. Never. We're leaving office, but we're not leaving the fight. You're smart, you're skilled, you're passionate. The country needs you again. So all you can, stay engaged in all the ways you can. Whether it's in public service, the private sector, philanthropy, academia, running for office yourself, or anything else you choose to do. I give you my word, we believe in you. We, Jill and I, our family, believe in you. Just as I've said, how the laws we enact for those seasons are going to grow and bloom for decades to come. I say that to you as well. I have no doubt you'll make this experience and take the friendships you made to continue to do amazing things in decades to come. That's why I see a future. All of it leading the way by you all. You know, so take some time to decompress, reconnect with your friends, spend more time with your family, but most of all, take care of yourselves and each other. I mean it. Let me close where I began, with my sincere gratitude. And I really mean it from the bottom of my heart. I've been doing this for 50 years with the best group of people. Hard to say. It's been the honor of my life to serve as your president. And I tell you what, a greater honor is being able to serve with all of you. You're incredible. You really are. You really are. Mark my words. History's going to judge what you've done as one of the most significant contributions that's been made by all of America. Look, folks, you know, let me close with that poem you heard me quote before. Seamus Heaney wrote, "Once in a lifetime, the longed-for tidal wave of justice will rise up and hope and mystery rhyme. You made it rhyme louder than it's rhymed in a long time." I really mean it. We're on the cusp of real change, so let's make hope and mystery rhyme. I love you all. I've keeping you too long, but thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Bottom of our heart, thank you. Thank you. Can I go up this way?
Chance of thank you, Joe, staff and friends and family of President Joe Biden and First Lady Jill Biden. If we know anything about Joe Biden, I think we can expect, even though it's very cold in that open airplane hangar, that he's probably going to spend quite some time personally greeting people and saying his goodbyes before he and his wife travel on to Delaware. You see Karine Jean-Pierre there in the foreground greeting her boss. White House Communications Director Antony Blinken, outgoing Secretary of State. Jen Psaki, I just have to ask you, having been through these moments, that goodbye to family and friends, that part of the transition is a very informal but potent thing.
It's exactly that. And I'm just going to note there's also Steve Ricchetti. I see Mike Donnellan, Ben LeBold. He's basically surrounded. Evan Ryan, who's the wife of Secretary of State Tony Blinken, who he referenced in his speech. So these are some of the people who have been surrounding Joe Biden, not just for the last 4 years, but for some of them for 20 years, for 30 years. And there is, so what you can't exactly see in this picture, and I was here when President Obama left, I was there, is you have a bunch of people who were just a couple of hours ago in charge of essentially the free world in a variety of ways at different levels.